Hello everyone, welcome to English Tutorials by Poonam Thakur. In this video, I will be giving detailed explanation of part 2 of the chapter The Interview by Christopher Silvester from class 12th English textbook Flamingo. So let's get started. Before we proceed further, let me tell you about the writer. Christopher Silvester is a freelance journalist, ghostwriter, copywriter and media relations consultant. He has written for several newspapers and magazines, including the Evening Standard, The Guardian, The Observer, The Independent on Sunday, Esquire, GQ, and Vanity Fair. He is also the editor of the Penguin Book of Interviews, an anthology from 1859 to the present day. And what does anthology means? A published collection of poems or other pieces of writing. Style of the chapter. The chapter is divided into two parts. The first part brings out different views on genre of interview, and the second part is an interesting dialogue between the interviewer and the interviewee. For the detailed explanation of part 1, you can refer to my other video, link of which is given in the description box. While reading the chapter, you will notice that though different independent questions follow one another all through, the reader experiences a smooth flow and logical coherence. Nowhere does the interviewer stand between the celebrity and the reader's curiosity. So who was the interviewer in the excerpt? The interview was conducted by none other than Mukund Padmanabhan from the newspaper The Hindu. His well-worded questions help us to know Umberto Eco by throwing light on different dimensions of his personality, writing style, and ideas. So who is interviewee whom Mukund Padmanabhan is going to interview? He is none other than Professor Umberto Eco, who apart from being an authority on semiotics, is a renowned and brilliant scholar from the University of Bologna in Italy. He is an author of wide-ranging literature comprising fiction, academic texts, essays, children's books, and newspaper articles. He stormed the world with his novel, The Name of the Rose, which sold more than 10 million copies. Well, on this slide, you can see the clipping of the famous interview of Umberto Eco with Mukund Padmanabhan, and it was published in the newspaper The Hindu. I have also shared the link of his interview on YouTube. If you're interested in knowing about the author, you can visit YouTube and view his interview. The second part of the chapter is an excerpt from an interview of Professor Umberto Eco, who apart from being an authority on semiotics, that is the study of signs, is a renowned and brilliant scholar from the University of Bologna in Italy, an author of wide-ranging literature comprising fiction, academic texts, essays, children's books, and newspaper articles. He stormed the world with his novel, The Name of the Rose. He attained intellectual stardom with his publication, The Name of the Rose, which sold more than 10 million copies. Interviewed by Mukund Padmanabhan from The Hindu, Professor Umberto Eco very humbly spells the secret behind his varied and staggeringly voluminous works. That means his extensive and vast body of work. During the interview, Mukund asked him what he would say to David Lloyd's remark that how one man could do all the things that Umberto Eco did. He very modestly says that it was a false impression about him. In fact, he has always been doing the same thing by pursuing the same philosophical ideas in different genres that he has written. In the interview, Eco shares his idea of empty spaces in our lives just as they exist in an atom, which he calls interstice, which means a short space of time between two events. He elaborates how he utilizes even the briefest gaps between two different pieces of work that results in his producing unimaginable large amount of scholarly pieces. He calls these gaps, as I already mentioned, interstices. Working during these interstices makes him work wonders. Mukund then asks him about his inimitable, that is unique and playful style, which is poles apart from the dull and drab style that scholars adopt for writing academic works. In his answer to this question, that if this informal narrative style comes to him spontaneously or is a result of conscious effort, Eco tells Mukund how he learnt this secret at the young age of 22. When he submitted his doctoral dissertation, his professor was impressed with the interesting story of his research, which rather than just enlisting the conclusions, included all his trials and errors that helped him reach the completion of his thesis. By way of complimenting him, the professor got his research work published as a book. Since then, Umberto Eco says he never deviated from this narrative style, which eventually made him novelist, although quite late at the age of 50. Umberto Eco tells the story of his research, including his trials and errors, which make his style personalized, playful, and in the form of a narrative. Please remember his narrative style because most of the time in board examination questions are asked related to Umberto Eco's writing style. Eco's essays were scholarly and narrative, but he likes to be identified more as an university professor who writes novels on Sundays. Most people know Umberto Eco as a novelist, but it doesn't please him as he identifies himself with the academic community and he goes about attending conferences rather than attending meetings of pen clubs and writers. However, fiction draws him an audience that his scholarly works can never draw. He has only 5 novels to his credit and over 40 non-fictional works. Novel writing came to him accidentally. Having nothing to do one day, he started trying his hand at novel writing and stormed the world with The Name of the Rose, a detective novel which drew millions of readers. On being asked if the unbridled success of The Name of the Rose surprised him, as it is a very serious novel. It is a detective yarn at one level, but it also dwells in metaphysics, theology, and medieval history. Yet it enjoyed a huge mass audience. The Name of the Rose sold 10 to 15 million copies worldwide. Answering to the question, Umberto Eco frankly says that it didn't puzzle him much, but it was far beyond the expectations of the journalists and publishers, as they could never imagine that so many people could be drawn to serious reading. Umberto Eco has his own logic. He feels that just as he himself turns to light television programs after dinner, everybody likes brief spells of light reading now and then. The pre-medieval period that his book deals with could also have been instrumental in giving it a huge success. He says that had it been published a decade earlier or 10 years later, it might not have seen such an encouraging response. Why it worked at that time is a mystery. With this, we come to the end of this lecture. I hope you have thoroughly understood part 2 of the interview. Feel free to drop a line and I will get back to you. Link to the PDF of this mind map is given in the description box. Like, share and subscribe. English Tutorials by Poonam Thakur.